Hello and welcome to another edition of Indie Musicians Talking Music. I decided for this edition to do something a little bit different than usual. I'm with Moby T, Michael Tanner, who is not an indie musician. Hey, Michael. But actually works more the other side of the fence, doing promotion, radio stations. Well, Michael, why don't you tell me a little bit about all the stuff
Yeah,
you're involved in and doing?
yeah, indeed. Yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. First of all, Martin,
Well,
I really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I guess I'm a jack of all trades and master of none, really. So I kind of have a blog which I write about new music and bands and new artists and
And
things.
what's that called?
So that's Rebirth of Cool blog that I
Okay.
started during lockdown. Um, And as well as that, I work for an independent radio station called In Your Ears Music. We're a non-for-profit station that was started by a couple of guys that are now friends to me that I
Nice.
met through Twitter. They're based up in Bury, and a few of us got to know them and said, "Yeah, we'd like to have a go at DJing." And so we started to do that as well. And then ultimately, I guess for me, it was all just kind of using Twitter and social media really to kind of connect with people and try and use some of my, I guess, expertise, one would say, because of my age in years and experience in this kind of music scene, really, of what I thought I could add to it, I suppose. So that's kind of it. Yeah. So I'm kind of, I've done some YouTube videos myself, not as professional as this, that's for sure. and and bits of it. And then, as I say, yeah, I do like my own show on In Your Ears called Wonky Pop, and I also do a monthly countdown with Danny from Australia, the old indie kid. Shout out to him, where we go through the best 20 songs of the month and fool around, basically.
Oh,
So
nice. No, it's great. I'd love to do something like this on this channel at some point. So maybe we'll talk and
yeah,
because I definitely think the more opportunities that we can have to promote other stuff, I really think that that's one of the biggest things that's really lacking at the moment. There's very little of like a star system in a
mm,
sense. There isn't. That you don't have the things that when we were growing up were there to sort of help you discover bands.
yeah.
That you never would have discovered otherwise. If they hadn't made it into some indie chart or there hadn't been some obscure article in some magazine or. And I
Well,
think the more
yeah,
that we can do,
absolutely.
but mainstream, I mean, as opposed to having to follow 20,000 different blogs to, which is
Fine.
more the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really valid point. I think music press has died.
Yeah,
The Enemy, Melody Maker, Sounds in my day, and those kind of magazines and weeklies that were always writing about new
yeah,
bands and new new scenes coming up in various parts of the UK and the world that they just haven't been there.
yeah.
And I think that's really a real shame. And the Enemy exists online, but it doesn't hold true to its roots. And I think a lot of people, myself included, really frustrated by that
Yeah.
and felt like actually, there's a lot of music out there that can be brought forward. And everyone was saying, "Oh, it's a death of the guitar, death of the indie bands, and all this," and it's very, very far from the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, the charts are dominated by manufactured pop, as we know, and sometimes you'll get someone go in, out of the blue will go in there, but the days of sitting around a TV in the UK watching Top of the Pops on a Thursday to see rap against heavy metal, against indie, against pop, against dance music are gone. It's just not that variety out there. But it doesn't mean that people don't want it. They just don't know how to access it, which is like you were saying. That's the key part.
Yeah, I think that's the big missing piece at the moment, or one of them, definitely. So a lot to unpack in terms of all the stuff you're doing.
Mm.
So DJing, what kind of music do you DJ?
Well, so at the moment, I kind of focus on my own show, which is the Wonky Pop Show, which was created just um, when I first heard John Mitke or Mitchie. I think he's called John Mickey.
Mickey. Yeah, so
um,
he corrected me. I
yeah, the
mispronounced his
Scottish.
name on the
Yeah,
first episode.
even us
And I've
Brits.
known him for years too. This is the best,
I know.
Yes.
So I guess when I first sort of heard his music, which was
Hmm.
kind of probably 6 months or so into when I was really getting into the like what was out there and new stuff, I just kept seeing his name pop up.
Yeah.
Anyway, and to cut a long story short, he sent me his album and stuff, and I wrote about it, and we were just chatting, and I think the word wonky came up to sort of describe the kind of thing that his music was, which was kind of pop, but slightly to the left, like off kilter, a little
Yeah.
bit psychedelic, a little
Yeah.
bit different to the norm. And
Hmm.
that kind of just resonated with me in my head about the stuff that I like to listen to. Where it's, I love 3-minute pop songs, always have done, from stuff from the 60s and the 70s or whatever. I
Hmm.
love that kind of thing, like Motown or whatever. But
Yeah.
what I like is when someone does that, but actually does something a little bit skewed with it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit non-populist, I suppose, but interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Um,
The term I've heard for that used for that is left field.
yeah,
Is oftentimes,
definitely.
and a perfect example of that would be like Sparks.
Yeah. Funny enough,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, funny enough, I've just finished watching the film that was on
Oh,
Netflix.
I've heard it's excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it's long.
Yeah.
It's very,
Oh, that's
very.
all right. Yeah.
It's literally every album they go through, but it's fascinating stuff. And I'm not the biggest Sparks fan. I don't know
Hmm.
a lot of their stuff, but I know enough, and I know them as a unique duo and brothers and everything else. And yeah, and that's if you were to pick a band that people would kind of know that's wonky, so yeah, Sparks would be your go to, I think. And then and that's kind of how it happened, really. So what I tried to do was kind of shine a light on the indie scene that was away from and this kind of music I still like as well, away from the kind of 4 or 5 blokes with guitars being a bit like Oasis or the Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show that actually there's some other stuff going on out there, which has always been indie for me. The whole thing is such a wide net of music.
Hmm.
And it can be, your straight up sort of stadium filling bangers, as people like to say, and then or your very minimalist kind of bleeps and beats and the kind of EDM stuff and everything in between.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did really, and kind of started just picking some songs that I liked that were just like trying to have a bit of a feel to it, and that's where I've gone along with it really. And it's enjoyable because it just means that I get sent stuff that people know, I guess, that others wouldn't listen to, whereas I will listen to it.
Hmm.
And I'll try and find something in it that resonates, whether it's because it reminds me of something else
Yeah.
or whether because it's just completely daring. And I think that's the thing about indie is that people can really express themselves. They're not confined by record label and sales and all of that side of things. And actually the freedom to just create what's going on in their head and put it out there is a fantastic thing. And that's what excites me, I think.
Yeah. And so listen, sometimes that's the kind of music that creates a genre. A genre.
Definitely.
It's not the ones who are doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, that is absolutely it. If yeah, you're in the old days when there was money in record labels and stuff, and they would go out and sign up all the bands that sounded like the band that was popular, and it just kill a scene and stuff. Now that's not there, and as you say, there are bands out there that are doing their own thing that's
Yeah.
different to what you would perceive to be as a popular music
Yeah.
venture, I
And
suppose.
and for me that's a sense where something like the NME or Melody Maker back in the day, there's a big void.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that, I can remember hearing about bands like that then became what was everything a year or two later. Orange
Absolutely.
Juice. Orange
Yeah.
Juice is another perfect example. Postcard Records.
Yeah. Yeah.
It completely changed. Then everything was this quirky, shoe. As I had a friend, the shoegaze, it all came from
Yeah.
that. It was
Shoegaze.
that one
And shoegaze is,
band, right?
was much maligned after it kind of had its few bands and disappeared, and it's come back now so strong. There are so many bands that are doing really good what you would
Mhm.
class as shoegaze music, and
Yeah,
actually getting somewhere because of it. It's kind of you know really come back, and I like that music a lot nowadays. Some of it I was into, and some of it was just too noisy, and I just couldn't get my head around it. But I'm probably, a bit more. I don't know, more of that level with stuff like that now, where I can appreciate it a lot more. Plus, I have actually got tinnitus from My Bloody Valentine in one of my ears. Funnily enough, from a gig I went to in '92, when they were the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life, and I've had the ringing in one of my left ear ever since. So yeah, that's my claim to shoegaze fame. Tinnitus, brilliant.
But anyway, and if someone wanted to submit something to get onto your radio show, how would they do that?
Well, it was quite easy, really. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at Moby Tanner, and my DMs are open. You can literally send me a message and say, I've got something, and then I can give you my direct email address and stuff like that.
Perfect.
Also, because I'm connected to In Your Ears Music, there's a submit tracks at inyourearsmusic.com. You can send stuff through. You can mark it up for my attention, and the track managers and people that do that stuff when it comes in will let me know. But yeah, most of the time they contact me on social media, and I just give them my personal email, and then they send it through, and I'll have a listen. And even if it's not exactly what I want, I'll always try and give some positive or feedback to it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things when I started sort of doing this, sort of just as lockdown hit, really was very mindful of just being positive about music and new music, because I thought, well, what's the point in being negative and saying that's rubbish, I don't like that, it's crap, because there was enough of that around anyway. And and a lot of these musicians are doing it because it's an art and they want to get it out of their system. They're not in it for record sales necessarily, or fame and all the usual things that go on. Some probably are, but most of them, it's just about doing something that they love, and it's not being heard by hundreds and thousands of people. So someone like me then, using that as a platform to kick them is just not on. And I've seen people do that. I've seen some bloggers and writers and people like that have taken the opportunity to have a go at them, because they're trying to be, I don't know, I don't really know why they're doing it, to be honest. But anyway, so I just kind of kept to the point that I was just going to be positive with what I was listening to and the feedback I was giving. And yeah, I mean, I get stuff, and I will try and reply, but I can't support something I don't like. So I'm not going to go out there and say it's good and you should listen to it, because that's not right. But there's a way and means of letting people down gently.
Yeah. And there's a big difference between constructive criticism and malicious criticism.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It's and you think critics are bad.
Yeah.
You should check out. Well, you'd have to submit something, but on Submit Hub, the hot and not. I did that for a while when I started out, because the thing is, especially when you're starting with music, there's only so many times you can get your friends and family to listen to something, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
and most of the time they're really not that interested in it.
Not at all. No, I mean, my wife and friends don't even listen to my show.
Exactly. So at least with that, what you can do is you can get people, like, basically it's quite a smart system. I'm going to have the guy who founded it on it sometime soon to talk about it. But basically, what you can do there is you listen to a certain number of other people's songs, and you make credits, and then you can submit your own songs.
Yeah, okay.
And people will rate them, right?
Yeah.
And they guarantee a certain number of times that people are going to listen to it.
Yeah, cool.
So it's actually quite good criticisms to see. And what's nice is, as with Twitter or whatever, I left the sort of equivalent of the DMs open, so you could actually communicate with people.
Yeah.
And some of them I had really good conversations, and it was nice to hear, like, creative, really constructive criticism. But some of the other ones, oh my God, just like, and you like, I almost laughed at it at some point, because it was so transparently, it's either jealousy, or they're working out some other emotional issue, or they're just taking it out on you for something else. And
totally hit the nail on the head.
One, You happen to be the target of the day, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, during lockdown in the UK, there's a lot of pent up frustrations, and people, were struggling to communicate and deal with the day to day of these things that are going on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that kind of came out. But for me, what came out of it was so much positivity about people and like minded people having the chance to sit and listen to music. So, and I think that's vital for music and new music to thrive.
Yeah.
And as you say, we were talking a little bit about your background pictures there about, gigs and seeing loads of flyers and posters and bands. And, that doesn't really happen as much,
Yeah.
leading up to lockdown, and obviously during lockdown didn't happen at all. So the bands and artists that were very vocal and on Twitter and social media and promoting themselves probably did really well, by actually building up a following off the back of that without even having to tour. They could put music out, which is great, and some great stuff came out of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they could actually build up some fan base and get to know people, and there's some bands that I adore now that I've met through that process, just because you kind of got to know them, I suppose, and you get to understand what makes them tick and where does the music come from and what are their influences and all these things that I never really got to do too much as a youth in the bands that were around, in the late 80s and early 90s for me, apart from reading trade press, and reading Melody Maker and Enemy and stuff, so you take that away, it's like you don't know anything. And that's what worries me about. I sound like an old git, but that's what worries about the youth for today, is that there isn't any of that for them. Spotify, for all its positives, has a huge negative side to it, where people don't understand the value of music, and they dip and dive. They'll listen to one song, they won't listen to a whole album like we would do on CD or tape
Yeah.
or vinyl. At least vinyl's kind of back now. And they just listen to playlists and stuff like that. And one of my best friends who likes music apparently said to me that he always just goes onto Spotify of the bands he thinks he likes, goes to the chorus, and if he doesn't like the chorus, he moves on. I mean, it's incredible. And he's probably one of millions of people that do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, there's a bunch of different factors there, because on the one hand, I think that the album was destroyed by the CD.
Yeah.
In my mind, because once you could produce more music and release more music, many bands and artists who never should have done that, right?
Yeah.
If they'd had competent A&R,
yeah,
instead we're putting out 20-song CDs.
Yeah.
And about 3/4 of the songs were filler. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
albums became unlistenable, mostly. Not all. There were the rare exceptions.
Yeah,
but
the
gems of the golden age of albums was over before Spotify.
Yeah.
And the playlists are glorified, mixtapes.
Yeah.
In actuality, so that they've been around for a long time. But I think I think that what's really happened is just this complete erosion of any attention span. And that's social media.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
It
becomes so disposable, and therefore there's no people don't put any value to it, and that's, for me, is like, pretty heartbreaking. The bands that I love to this day, I was fully invested in them. From it doesn't, from I've said about this before, like, sort of the mid '80s when I got into In Excess and stuff like that, and New Order and things, which led ultimately to the Smiths, which led to the Stone Roses, which totally changed my mindset on music and everybody else I knew. And then from that stage onwards, the bands that came out off the back of that you could go and see and read about, and they were working class bands, that came from bad estates and worked their asses off gigging up and down the country to get somewhere, and finally it all clicked, and that's where the connection between fan and artist was incredibly strong, and that was a great thing. And that's kind of eroded away. It's coming back, I think, because of this kind of grassroots scene that's happening all over the country. I think, where, and that's a good thing. But yeah, it's prior to that, it's just, I don't know, I'm being condescending because it's to people under the age of 30 probably, and they'll say he's a silly old git, doesn't really know what's going on. But like you say, they'll know a track, but they don't know what album it's from. They'll it's almost like a greatest hits. Everything they listen to it's a greatest hits album. They don't actually know that it was made in 1984 in the west coast of Wales, or and it's do you know what I mean? That's and that to me is the love.
It's also that wonderful experience with an album where the whole thing comes together. You get like the perfect side, where you have this beautiful, where the songs get better because they're next to one another.
Yeah,
because they actually one song helps the other, and they they start blending in, and they start doing things that if you only listen to them in a greatest hits, you'd never have that experience.
Oh, that is such a true statement. I mean, recently, two bands that I've got to know quite well personally, as well as following them in their music, the Heavy North and the Shed Project, both released debut albums, and you're quite right. On those albums are a lot of the singles they put out, but as an album, I think it's given them so much more of a push because people are listening to that, and as you say, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. The first four songs are like, bang, bang, bang. And then, and that's that journey you go on with your favorite albums, isn't it? About, what's coming up and you can't wait to get to the song before because it's brilliant and it leads in. And I think that's the power of albums. And I think, that is coming back, and the vinyl revolution is coming back now, and CDs are coming in again, which, as you say, there's a concern, and it gets filled up with, a lot of other stuff that maybe waters it down a little bit. But it's a great thing, for certainly in this indie area where bands can do that relatively cheaply. I know vinyl's quite expensive to produce, but CDs and things that can be produced relatively cheaply now and look good as well. If you're ever interested, check out a band called Feverjaw, as kind of Welsh alt rock band that's kind of halfway between the Manic Street Preachers, Nirvana, that kind of thing. And I was amazed when I bought their first CD. It was like a gatefold thing. The artwork looked good. It had a sticker. It had a badge. It looked fantastic. And I spoke to the guy, lead singer Dow, who does it all, and he was laughing because he said, well, actually, it was relatively cheap because he knew people that could produce it. But I said, but it looks brilliant. And then they've continued that. And then, there's a band called The Mariners who put so much love into it. They are quite a 60s, band in that they sound like, all the great 60s groups that are out there. And they've got a thing, their first album, was full of love, and the cover and etc. The second album's like got a train theme. It's got a train on it. It's got little things. It's a bit like the Beatles albums where you're looking for little things to see influences and stuff. But also on the CD, they printed it so it looked like an old vinyl 7-inch, with the cover. Nice. Just those little things, and you think, wow, this is stuff that you haven't seen for a long time, and it's and that makes you more invested in their music because you know that they're not. They really believe in it, and they really, giving their heart and soul. And I think for me, that's where the support comes from. I think.
And that's where I think as a music lover, the possession of something like an album, and the amount of like you said, concentration you'd put into looking at that thing for hours on end as you were listening to the music, like
absolutely
the minute. It was like microscopic. It's hard to explain.
I know it is, and as you say, if you're trying to explain it to people that haven't experienced it, they probably
going to roll their eyes. But what's really unfortunate is what they're missing out on, which was such, I think, a vital aspect of it. Along with just that wonderful connection with all the other of your friends who were all getting into the music at the same time as you.
Yeah.
So there was a real communal feel about it, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
you didn't have to explain it because, well, that was the record that was playing at the party on Friday night. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That you
Yeah.
listened to the whole thing of over
Yeah.
and over again.
Hmm.
You know, especially when someone got drunk and insisted on playing it over and
Well, that was
over
it. Yeah,
again.
exactly that. It would be sitting in your mate's bedroom, or your mates
Yeah,
sitting in your bedroom, playing stuff round and round and being stupid and goofy about stuff. And yeah, or going to parties, or if when if you're driving, you put the cassettes in.
yeah,
And where I grew up, there wasn't a huge amount to do, even though I'm from South London, and in London Central, and all that stuff isn't far away. But there still wasn't huge amounts to do in the suburban parts of
yeah.
London.
And you didn't
And
have the money to do it anyway.
exactly, yeah. So
Yeah,
you would basically,
yeah,
as you say, everyone would bring a mixtape. You go and drive somewhere, put it in the cassette player, and sit there and and listen to music in your car and stuff. And it's a very communal thing, and and that's great, and a great, as you say, that kind of word of mouth spread all over the country. People are doing that, and it worked. I don't know
yeah,
how, but it did. But that's, I guess, because you did have to keep coming back to the music press. Those kind of things that were joining the dots for people. But I've certainly seen that in the last 2 years. A lot of the people I've met on Twitter, that I've met face to face, thankfully now as well. We kind of shared that experience, from the
mm,
basis of, being all over the country, all the way from, as north as Aberdeen down to, the Cornwall and the south of England and Wales and Manchester and,
yeah,
and Northern Ireland, and a lot of that was down to people like Dan Potter, who did his Happy Hour, which was a new music listening party that he
mhm,
started and done brilliantly on. Indie Rob, who did a virtual pub crawl during lockdown. I mean, massive credit to both of those guys for doing something simple, it would seem, but no one else did it. And
yeah,
that's the thing about good ideas. The simpler they are, the better they are. And nobody else thought of doing it. And that
mhm,
brought a lot of like-minded people together. And then you find out you can talk to them about, you got the same interests in music and bands. And are you listening to this? Have you heard this? Oh, how good is this?
yeah,
And that for me was just so refreshing and
yeah. Well, I mean,
encouraging.
that gets to something else that is lost as well in a lot of cases, which was the record store,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
is the
well,
other
yeah.
place where you did that, right?
Yeah, right.
You know,
Weekends trawling through things, just and meeting up and seeing,
yeah,
and trying to beat your mates down to the record store to buy the last copy of so and so's 12-inch, and
yeah, or
you know,
scouring through the used bins looking for
yeah,
that
oh,
amazing record, and every once in a while you got that amazing record, right? For
definitely,
the £1 or $1 or
yeah,
whatever
yeah. I mean,
that changed
that,
your life.
yeah, it
You
held
know,
held on to it forever, and I got, yeah, absolutely,
yeah, but I think a lot of what's been lost is just the physicality of things as things become more and more digital.
yeah,
Is that there's no longer that physical connection with something or that sense of possession of it, which is what you cherish, right?
oh God,
Getting
yeah,
back to the point you were making earlier, everything has become so transitory, and music is just something that you know have in the background. And if anything, it's like I think the one part of the whole sort of streaming revolution that bothers me the most is how a lot of the companies like Spotify are moving towards this rather, for me, it's ominous mood. Everything's about a mood now, you know,
yeah,
and it's just like, are you listening to yourselves?
yeah.
This was invented back in the 1950s or whenever it was, and it had a name, and it was called elevator music,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it's like that's what their vision of the future is, and it's rather
Yeah.
frightening when you think about it.
And
And completely anti the sort of DIY ethos of indie music.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why there are bands out there that are trying to buck that trend and that are trying to, you know, go back to basics
Yeah,
of what works and what's you know a, that is something, as you say, a bit more credible. And actually, they're not don't feel like they're selling their souls to the man and all that kind of scenario, And and I've got a lot of time for Bandcamp. I think that does a
yeah,
great service, because again, you can hear, different stuff, and you can look for genres and things quite easily. It could be a lot better, and I think it might be now it's been bought out. But the fact, that you could, purchase something, even as a download, and that that's doing something for that musician, spending a couple of pound on a track that is worth more than 400,000 plays on Spotify or something, and then you kind of think, well, that's definitely the right thing to do. And then bands get to sell merch and things on that as well, and send messages out. And again, it's a bit more of a social platform, I think. And and I really like it. And I've found a lot of music through Bandcamp that way. But Spotify is the most easy and accessible way to listen to music. You can't get away from that.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to hear new music. Because once you start following bands and artists and stuff you like, then you start to see more of that because of the way the algorithms work and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So actually, it makes it easier for you, but I don't think the artists really benefit from it in the long run, unless they go viral and start getting millions and millions of plays, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's a very small number. But so is it. It's always been, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these things are not. The technologies change, the rules have stayed the same.
Yeah. I think also for me, one of the big changes in kind of getting back into this music, and really kind of investing my time in it, was I had to kind of change my view that when I heard something that I really love, that actually it wasn't going to be number one in the top 40. It wasn't going to be, the next big thing. Because that's what I was used to. Bands that I followed in the past would have loads of money chucked at them by record labels. They would make videos. Again, videos are pretty much done.
They're gone.
And you can see that they would get bands into the top 40, which is a big thing, and then it would be the top 30, then the top 20, and then they're going in at 10, and then and I always still really a little bit, not as much as I did initially, think this should be number one. This should be number one. This, because I'm thinking everybody should hear this.
Yeah.
And everybody should love this because, I'm loving it. And I know lots of people that love it. It just needs a bigger platform for everybody to love it.
Yeah.
And then I start speaking to artists about that. And they're saying, well, it's not really about that. And it wouldn't happen anyway. So I had to kind of rejig my view on it about, what are they in it for? And what do they want from me as someone, as one, as a listener, and two, as someone that can help promote them, I think. And, that's that. I've learned a lot in the last sort of 2 years about how marketing, PR works in today's world, I suppose, and how, the little bit that I do to help does help. And I think that for me is quite a nice thing to feel part of.
Well, let's stay on that point there then for a second. What would you say would be your top 3 tips, suggestions for artists in terms, because I think myself included, a lot of artists just do not understand the promotion area of things very well, nor do we have an interest or the time for it. And it's a lethal combination, right? And so much good music is just not getting the attention that it should.
Yeah.
And the artist is like, we're as responsible or more responsible than anybody because it's ours. But I know, like with myself, my next record, I've decided I'm going to actually try to promote it as opposed to what I've done in the past.
Yeah.
So what suggestions would you have for me, let's say?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to, you have to try and promote it, whether you like doing it or not. And I get it, and I spoke to a lot of musicians, the same thing. And they say, they put so much time and effort into making the thing, and that is the love. Once they've done it, the next bit isn't as important because they've created something. Whereas I'm like, no, that is really important because you need to get people to hear this.
Yeah.
And the bands and artists that do put a lot of time into social media, it is very tiring. It will wear you out, and it's a lot of, doors metaphorically being slammed in your face.
Yeah.
So, but you kind of got to keep at it a bit and be social and sociable, and also like, I mean, a couple of people I can think of who kind of done it more was not just be talking about the music. It's more about you as an individual, and actually, are you a bit of a laugh? Are you got some interesting stories to tell? And you're kind of engaging with people,
Mm-hmm.
that are interested in you because they like what you do, and it's for me, I still get really kind of starstruck when I meet musicians. Whether you release one record or you're David Bowie, I would literally
Mm-hmm.
be quite starstruck because I find it an incredible thing and talent to be able to do. And it's like, you're talented, artistic people, and you should try as hard as you can or want to get that to as many people as you can, and that would be my first thing, I guess.
Okay.
Secondly, it is a lot about networking. It is a lot about making the right connections. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, I suppose. It's that whole thing of it's who you know and not what you know, which I think goes through everyone's life in various different ways, whether it's in your work life, private life, or whatever. But
Yeah.
it does happen that if you do get to know someone that's willing to write about you, tweet about you, play you, talk about you, then great, they'll do it for you. That's the thing for me. It's like if I like something, I'll support you and I'll help you in my own way, and I'll tell as many people as I can to check you out and listen
Mm-hmm.
to it, and and that's not and I'll do that. Just purely because of the love of it. So I guess my third thing is don't spend any money on it if you can help it. Don't fall into the trap of like these people that say they'll charge you to be on various playlists and they'll send me all this money and I'll make you a star, because they have very little influence anyway. And it's just a hiding. You're just flushing your money down. It'd be easier just to do it yourself and put that money somewhere else, to do some gigs or a record store show, and just do things that are actually worthwhile to you that you can get something out of,
Yeah.
because there's just a load of shysters out there that are there just to see an opportunity for themselves. So, be careful with who you get in bed with, I suppose. But I mean, I was shocked when I started my blog and I was contacting bands and artists that I'd just been listening to and said, can I send you some questions? I'd like to write some
Mm-hmm.
stuff about you just to test my own abilities in it. And some of them like, yeah, okay, how much are you going to charge us? I was like, what? And I couldn't believe that people were doing this and charging people, especially at times when that we were going through where it was incredibly difficult, and what was everyone doing with their lives? So,
Yeah.
for me, I've never charged anybody to just say how good someone's music is. I mean, that's bonkers. I mean, me and my colleague Danny, the old indie kid, when we do our show, we do a lot of jokes about if you want to be played on the show, where to find us, what envelopes to send us, and I like Haribos, so Haribos will win every day,
Yeah.
you know, but it's very very much tongue in cheek, it's and yeah, so I guess that's it really, is try and do it as best you can,
Yeah.
however you're comfortable with doing it. Try
Mm-hmm.
to do it, and try and just to be out there and be proud of what you've done. And it's that whole thing. I mean, of shouting about yourself, which is difficult for most people anyway.
Yeah.
But the bands that do it and do it the right way definitely get a more of a response on it. Secondly, yeah, find the right people that like the music that you like and that you're putting out, and try and connect with them and get them to help you.
Yeah.
And thirdly, make sure you don't give any money to people that are basically going to charge you for stuff like that, because 99 times out of 100 it's bullshit, isn't it? So
Yeah. Yeah. Or the listens you're getting are
yeah,
bots.
yeah,
They're
exactly,
not
yeah.
even real listens. It's
No.
some bot farm in India.
Yeah. And I get that, you could, and I know a few people that gone down that route of just been able to say we've had 20, 30,000 listens on something to get them somewhere where someone else will actually listen.
Yeah.
I guess it's a tactic of, going through so many doors to get to the guy who's the big decision maker. And maybe that's a way to do it if you think that is a way to do it. But I've not seen a lot of success from that myself.
No.
So.
No. Well, because the other thing is people are at some point they're going to listen to it.
Yeah.
So, and if the music isn't any good, it won't go any farther, no
Yeah, I
matter
mean,
how good or how much you've paid or how many supposed listens there were.
yeah, I mean, a conversation I've had for the last 40 odd years is music always finds a way,
Yeah.
and you will, if it's good enough, it will find its way, and
Mhm.
it might take a while or whatever, but eventually, yeah, it will find a way because
Yeah.
good music, you can't keep good music down. I don't think you've ever been able to. And, however that is, whatever it is that makes that happen, is just a brilliant thing. And, seeing bands go on that journey and stuff is an incredibly exciting thing. So
No, it's
just
it's
keep the
a
faith, I think.
no, definitely. I think one of the, at least for me, one of the biggest stumbling blocks that I find is after you've finished a project, it's not that you don't have the energy to promote it. Half the time you hate the thing
Yeah, because you've overheard it
because
and spent
yeah,
so much.
it's like a postpartum depression basically.
Yeah.
And like after you've done it, you I've never questioned that happens with mothers and their babies because it really is. No, but it's the same thing. You've invested so much into it and you've obsessed
Yeah.
about it so much that when it's done, when you finally, it's no longer there to obsess over. It's a very strange. You're in a very strange place,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
you know.
It
And
must be,
I'm almost thinking what I'm going to do this time is literally I'm going to create a plan. You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
John Mickey was nice enough. He shared some resources, and I think I've got a list of, I don't know, the 5,000 radio stations or
Yeah, yeah, he's
something. You
brilliant. I
can,
mean, yeah. I mean,
this Bible, this big.
that
Anyway,
bit, yeah, he showed me that of
yeah,
like when I first got to speak to him and stuff, and all the different people to contact in different areas.
yeah, and
Incredible.
he
And
actually did it with his thing. I mean, if there's anyone that's more deserving of a like a Twitter check mark than John, I don't know who it is, because I don't know if you know the story, but um he actually, what did he say for his last record when he was on the show? He was telling me he literally sent out a tape or an MP3 with
yeah,
an email to every single college in the US.
wow, that's a mental. Well, good
Yeah.
on him.
Oh no, he's the hardest working.
It,
He takes it very, very seriously,
yeah,
which is
and
one of the
and it,
things I really love about him. Right?
yeah,
He's
and he's
very
a bit of a
He's the most
guru, and
generous person,
mm,
and but he also, he's not just about the words. He actually does the work.
yeah, yeah, totally.
You know?
and and yeah, and that's great. And a lot of people talk about him, and it was funny, really, because the algorithms kept chucking him up on my timeline for things. I just liked the name, and I
Yeah.
was like, it just sounded interesting. I'm going to listen to him because it sounds like he could be interesting, and rightly so, he is. and
Yes.
and
No.
he's
No. No.
incredible.
Definitely.
And I think that's a great thing when you kind of those kind of artists that you come across, and whatever reason, it just makes you want to listen, and
Yeah.
then you're like, oh wow, this is so good. I'm so glad I've invested in this time to do that.
Yeah.
So, and it's yeah, I always say that if you've got a really interesting art name, then I'm more likely to listen to you, um, just because it sounds like you've got something different going on in your psyche that makes you interesting, or you're incredibly dull. I don't know, but I would more than likely listen to you than not.
No. No. Fair enough.
But maybe that's the fourth one: is give yourself a really interesting name, and
Easier
you know,
said than done.
yeah, I know.
I mean, I went through a bunch, and then I finally just said, you know what? I'm just gonna go by my name.
Yeah, it's a good
Although
idea.
it's interesting because I actually did, for my last single, I actually did like submit it to a couple of radio shows, and I think it will be playing at some point this month. I have to.
Yeah,
But what was interesting is I had to actually create a bio. You
oh,
know?
blimey, yeah, the
Well,
famous
but
bio.
and then, so I did it. But what was interesting is, I said, you know what? I'm not just going to do one of these standard things. And with me, it's really funny because one of the family myths is our relationship to Buddy Holly because of the name,
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if you know the lore or not, but his Holly was spelt the same way as my name.
Yeah.
and the E was dropped. It was a typo on the first single,
Oh wow. I didn't know
right?
that. I never knew that.
And the weirdest coincidence, and this is, it's one of the things, if I ever have enough money, I
Yeah.
would love to go and make a documentary of, because it would just fascinate me to find out what the truth is. But the story that we'd always heard is my grandfather, the Holly, was the youngest son, and he had a much older brother who was, of course, the black sheep of the family.
All right.
Left the whole family, cut ties. He couldn't get along with the father, the standard story. And the only thing they ever heard from him years later was a postcard, and the postmark was Lubbock, Texas. So,
That's brilliant. You've got to
so
do that. Wow.
And I worked it out, and I think I'd be fifth cousin, is
That's
how it
pretty
would
cool.
work out with the whole,
Yeah.
generation things, and it's a
Yeah.
grandfather's, and
Yeah.
but I'd be a fourth or fifth cousin, I think, something like
That's
that.
cool. That's
So I
really
always thought that was a fun little story. So that went into the bio.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing I'll be like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm going to see what this guy sounds like.
There you go. You'll get the submission. It's in the email. It's in an
Okay.
email. Yeah. No, you definitely. I'd love to be on your show, or at least submit for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me a little bit about your blog. How long have you been blogging? You said since the beginning of COVID, right?
Yeah, so it's something that came out of just boredom. I get bored very, very quickly, but also I'm incredibly lazy. So it's kind of like a constant battle of boredom and laziness. But
Right.
yeah, lockdown happened for everybody, and I just got to the point where I was like, what am I going to do with myself? My job, I wasn't particularly busy. So I had a lot more spare time than other people, luckily. So I was at home a lot, and I was just like, you know what, I've always wanted to write, and I'm averagely educated, if that, to be honest. And English has never been a very good thing for me, and it's something that have always interested me for years and years and years. I just never did it. And then one day I just thought, sorry, I'm going to do it. So I just kind of Googled how to create a blog site, and thought, well, I tinkered around with that. And then I kind of thought about half a dozen people that I'd like to write about and give it a go. And I just kind of come at it from a point of view about how would I want to read? How would I like to read something, I guess. And, I just wrote it how I'd talk about it, I suppose. But I just came at it from a view of how the Enemy and Melody Maker and papers like that used to talk about bands, about trying to get that excitement across, about hearing something for the first time or whatever, about how great this band or artist or whoever it is. So I just started doing that. I pulled in a couple of favors with some people that I knew quite well in sort of other areas, just to give it a bit of a push and stuff. But the idea was I would only write about cool things, so that's why I called it The Rebirth of Cool. I kind of nicked that off some jazz album, I think, which I always thought was a pretty good name. And my eldest daughter created me the logo, which is ripped off of the Pop Art Love logo. So I haven't been sued yet, so that's good.
That's very good.
I kind of thought about just creating a whole brand on it.
Right.
And so first of all, so I just created that and started writing and doing this 20 questions thing. And then it kind of went from there. And I just got really prolific, where I could just start smashing stuff out, and people resonated with it. I was amazed, genuinely amazed. I still am. I mean, it's probably the most proudest thing I've done ever, outside of family stuff, I suppose. But it kind of showed me that actually, people like what I said and would read what I said, and and it helped spread the word. And again, all the thing I do is just to help someone be heard and get somewhere further. It's if that's what it does, then great. I don't, I'm not in it for my own gain or personal fame or any of that, really. It's that's never interested me, really, and certainly at the age I am now, certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
But I want to have fun with it, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm trying to remain positive about it all. I'm not going to, slate people and bands and artists that are struggling to be heard. There's no point, So it's all positive. It's all great, about some good stuff. And Yeah, I like doing it. I'm in a bit of a slump at the minute, though. Funnily enough, where I'm just sort of got a bit of writer's block, where I'm really struggling to come up with stuff. Really, I kind of just in my mind it's there, but I just can't get it out onto the
Yeah.
document.
Well, you have to just work through it, or sometimes you need to take a break. I
Yeah,
find, at least with
definitely.
music, a break to just sort of refresh things and reset.
Yeah, definitely. And I think again, it's say real life gets in the way of these things, and like we were saying earlier, that
Yeah.
it's a hobby.
Yes.
It's something that started off when I had more time, and
Yeah.
it was fine because I had more time to do it. And then it gets to a stage where it's actually consuming a lot of my time, and then real life comes back into that,
Yeah.
and then it's really hard, and then more
Yeah.
people are relying on you, and then it's like, wow, this is like, I'm spinning a lot of plates here. So yeah, you do have to kind of have a
Yeah.
break and
Well, hopefully as well, you'll find a space where it can bring in enough income that it'll allow you to, you know what I mean, work less or whatever. Because
I,
I mean, it's a hobby, yes, but at some point, we all have expenses. Is a good way to
mm,
put it, right?
yeah, I suppose. I mean, at the minute, as
You
I
know,
say,
but at the minute, then
it's all it's costing me is time and effort,
yeah,
really.
yeah,
And again, once you start getting into like an artistic mind frame, which I've never really been in, and I'm sure this is the same for you as a musician, your mind starts going into overload about things that you can do.
oh,
So
of
you start
course,
becoming even more artistic. So actually,
yeah,
I think I can do this. I'm going to create a TV show. I'm going to create a radio station. Whatever, a radio show.
yeah,
And my mind's going into overdrive. But how can I make this brand bigger? I
yeah,
started
yeah.
selling
No, no,
merchandise.
I totally hear that. Look at my
And then
T-shirt.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I haven't got mine. I should put mine on, shouldn't I? Damn.
Oh, damn.
But
Well,
yeah,
next time I have you on, we'll
yeah,
do
yeah.
we'll
But
do a
that's
show on
exactly what
branding.
happened.
Yeah.
So and
So,
then you find that you're kind of like, oh, knackered. I
yeah,
don't
no,
know
I know.
why.
But listen, it's a good knocker. You sleep knowing that you did something creative and
Yeah,
positive
I think so, and I
and
think as I've got
productive
to,
and all that.
yeah, I mean, for me, kind of getting to like I'm 50 this year, and I've been through a lot of music scenes and listened to
Yeah.
a lot of music over those years, but actually never been involved in it like I am now. And
Yeah.
I'm on the fringes of it. Don't get me wrong; it's not like I'm fully involved in the music industry or anything.
Yeah.
I'm far from that, but the fact I can now say, you know what, in all the years that I've listened to music and the stuff that I like, and I've given a little bit back, I suppose.
Hmm.
And I think, and that again is kind of like something I can, I will sit back when I'm a lot older and a lot grey and go, you know what, that was pretty cool, and I met some really cool people because of it and had a great time
Yeah.
because of it. And I think that's life experiences and stuff, and just making you kind of it helps you. I think it helps me mentally and stuff as well. Kind of resonate about I might have a pretty, my day to day job might not be the most exciting thing, but it allows me to do what I'm doing now. So,
Yep.
and
Which
that's a
is great.
great balance to have, you
Yes.
know. So, and then that makes work life so much easier. So,
No,
it's
no,
good.
definitely. And you sleep better at night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mostly.
So listen,
Hmm.
before the show,
Yeah.
I set out on Twitter and asked people if they had any questions. So I thought we'd do a little bit of fan service because
Yeah.
obviously
Fine.
you've
Yeah.
got some
Wow.
fans.
Fans.
I know. Hey, just like good,
Well,
good go.
I think they're just trying to
You're
catch me
building your
out.
community, right?
Yeah. No,
You're doing
that's pretty
social media
interesting.
right. So, uh, Joe, I guess it's Hat Adhammer or
Oh, Joe
Adamar.
Adamar. Yeah.
Adamar. Okay. Oh yeah, there
Yeah.
would be a Mar at the end. I'm terrible at names, pronouncing names. He had four questions.
Oh,
So we'll
blimey.
we'll go through them. Quick answers.
Yeah.
Number one, um, why do you have so much rare vinyl? What's your
Uh,
obsession with rare vinyl?
okay. So a quick answer is one. I've spent a lot of money on rare vinyl over the years and just bought a lot when I could. But the main reason is that my dad used to work for a TV station back in
Oh,
the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And he knew the guy that worked in promotions. And every kind of month or so, he would turn up with a massive box of promotional vinyl.
wow.
And and me and my brother were able to root through that and kind of like you would just be able to listen to it all if you wanted. I mean, some of it I never did, but I would sit there and just put it on, take it off, put it on, and basically from that I was able to build up a massive free collection of vinyl,
Mm-hmm.
which again puts me on a journey all over the place
Yeah.
music.
How many records did you have at the height of your collection?
I guess so. When you're talking like in my early 20s and stuff, before I sold a lot, I mean, I had to sell at various stages of my life, sold quite a bit of stuff purely for monetary reasons. And but yeah, I don't know. I probably had like 20,000 7-inch records and things like that. And
Wow.
I don't know, 12 inches an album and stuff. And but now it's relatively small and really.
Yeah.
I mean, when eBay kicked off and I was a
Yeah.
father and stuff, most of it that was left went on eBay.
Yeah, but people need to understand when you had that many records, just the amount of physical space you need to store it becomes an issue. I mean, that's a room that's stuffed, if not, and shelves and shelves and shelves. I mean, I used to work at a record store, so you get an idea of just how many records you can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when I would go down to like secondhand record stores and sell some of the stuff and just to clear out the some of the crap, and what I always find interesting is like the stuff I didn't like at the time that I got rid of. I bet my life there's some really brilliant stuff in that I'd love now. So it's like I've got stuff that I loved then and now, but it's like if I only kept everything.
Yeah, well, the worst one for me is because, of course, I used to work in a record store for years, so I didn't have maybe at my height 400, 500, 600 records, right?
Yeah,
albums.
Yeah,
and of course you sell them, because otherwise you're just lugging them around all the time whenever you move.
Yeah.
But the number of things that I've sold and then bought another copy of is also, oh my God.
Oh. So,
and you're thinking, and sometimes, and it's just like, and it's years later, or you track it down and you get a CD of this record, which was unobtainable, because it was just never, or it was never released in Canada, or all of these crazy things. Because you guys are much more spoilt than we are in Canada, just in terms of the amount of indie stuff also that got out.
The accessibility to it. But you're right. I mean, in again during lockdown, I was on eBay and I bought a Fierce Panda 7-inch record that I'd sold on eBay about 10 years prior, and I bought it back for cheaper than I sold it for. So I actually got it back, and in theory, I've made money on it. So I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is brilliant, and we're talking like less than a tenner,
Yeah.
But actually, when I sold it, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I should sell this. I think it was like Fierce Panda 1 or 2 or something. It was one of they used to do like a 7-inch of, again, a brilliant idea of basically 4 or 5 bands on one 7-inch. So you get like 3 on one side, 2 on another, etc. And they're all independent and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you could play it at 45 or whatever, and 33 or whatever to cram as much in as you could. And it was great. And it was all DIY drawn and stuff. And, it was quite a big thing for a while. Fierce Panda did quite well, I think. They did grow to actually be quite a good independent label, and I was just thought, I just want that back. And it was there, it was. And I thought,
well, great. It's great that you got it and you made money on it too.
Yeah. And, and that's the thing. And then I think, well, I regret selling some things, definitely, like some early Radiohead stuff and things like that. I sold to very grateful Mexicans, I have to I think, and a Divine Comedy, very very early single they did called Europop was very profitable, and then the Beta Band's first ever 12-inch Champion Versions I sold for £100, and I just couldn't turn it down. And I was gutted about that. I really am, and still it bites a little bit. But you can, the thing is now you can listen to it. Obviously, with everything that's gone on, it's probably the right thing to do, and it got me through a difficult time financially. So, I've got the memories.
No. In that case, no regrets, right?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't regret. No, not.
So number 2.
That's a long, short, quick answer.
Oh no, don't worry about it. Number 2. How do you prepare for a show that will be live? So this is like a performance question.
Yeah. So most people would say clearly he doesn't prepare, and I would jokingly say I don't prepare, but I do prepare a lot. I'd
Yeah.
probably put, if I was doing an hour show, I'd probably put minimum of about 4 or 5 hours into it. One, to get to listen to the music I want to play. Two, to
Yeah.
get that in an order that I
Hmm.
want to play it, so it kind of seems, or there's a theme to the show
Yeah.
that that I'm
Yep.
picking up, that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And others might not pick up on that, but for me, it's a bit of an OCD thing, I suppose. Um, Three, to kind of know what it is I'm playing and what I'm going to say, and four, to check all the tech and make sure everything would work. And invariably and famously, most of my tech breaks down at various points. Again, I'm not the most tech savvy person, and but as I say, I did. I bought a decent microphone to do it and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that. I took it I take it seriously.
No, it's good.
But I try not to overdo it, because
Yeah.
I try to be as natural as I can be, and live on the moment a little bit. The fear thing of, I like that kind of fear aspect of live, that
Yeah.
anything could happen, and invariably does. But I also like the fact that I'm trying to get across the excitement of the music I'm playing. I try
Yeah.
and be like, get a bit of my energy through to people that are listening, I suppose. So
No, it's good. No,
that's how I do it.
I did a little bit of DJing, and I think a lot of people just don't understand the amount of work that goes into it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
agree. I thought it'd be really simple and easy to do it, but no,
yeah,
it's really
I found
difficult.
it was more just like choosing the tracks, finding the tracks, deciding how the tracks go in an order that makes sense. Luckily, I mean, I was DJing. I wasn't being a radio DJ where you
Mm,
will speak about the tracks between it. But it was also just exhausting, and that countdown. What I I experienced there that I'd never really with music otherwise experienced is that countdown that happens,
yeah.
and that's something else that I think people don't understand, right?
Oh
Like that moment of fear where because you want to like when you DJ in front of a crowd, you want to keep them going, right?
yeah,
And things aren't working well. You've got to change a song. You've got 45 seconds to decide what to play.
yeah,
And your biggest fear is you're going to clear the floor,
yeah. I've done that a few
right?
times. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then a technical issue happens or
yeah,
something. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Or
yeah,
or someone comes up and they want to talk to you at the DJ booth or God knows what. Anyway,
yeah.
that's fun.
Totally agree.
Oh, here's a good one. What were your three favorite gigs of all time?
That's relatively easy, I think.
Okay.
So number one, I saw the Stone Roses twice during their time. So I saw them. I didn't see them at their peak in the early 90s. I saw them when they came back with the second album in 94, 95. So I saw them at Brixton Academy,
Yeah.
and that was just an incredible night, because I thought they were just amazing, and it was a big social thing with all my friends that had waited 5 years to see them, and that whole night just stays with me a long, long time,
Yeah.
and still does. Very, very close to that as I saw the Lars back in '91, and it's one of those things where we just got a ticket from a tout. We were kind of like, me and my friend were like, "What should we do? It's Sunday night. Let's go and see if we can see the Lars." Yeah, I'd quite like to see them. And
Hmm.
then we kind of got a ticket. It wasn't particularly expensive either, which was good. And I've never been so blown away by four blokes playing music. Genuinely incredible. And Lee Mathers is a lost treasure to this world, that he doesn't do anything musically anymore.
Yeah.
And obviously John Power ended up in Cast and things, and got some great success because he's a great songwriter in his own right. But they were powerful. They were,
Hmm.
it was literally acoustic guitar, lead guitar, bass, drums. But it's the songs and how they could get just how, I don't know. I imagine
Yeah.
it would be like seeing those great bands in the '60s, like the Byrds or Love, or even the Beatles to some extent. I think, but that were just doing it just with what they had with them. And
I think in the 60s, the thing is I don't know how good the sound systems were.
mm,
And I think that a lot of people remember things,
yeah,
some of it chemically induced and the rest of it just fond memories, right?
Yeah.
That
Totally.
might. No, it's funny. I'm going to interject my three because I was thinking of it as you were talking, and I'm really going to age myself. The first one was the first concert I ever saw, and that was Queen for the Night at the Opera tour.
Oh yeah, cool. Blimey.
Backup band was Rush for
Wow.
2112.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting.
Yeah, I bet
'Cause
that was
that
alright.
was the show I got me into Rush. I'd never
Yeah.
been, but I was like really young, 13 or 14 years old, I think. This is 1976.
Yeah.
Uh, Second show, and this one was all about the sound. It just absolutely floored me. Was Kraftwerk for the Computer World Tour.
Oh yeah.
The one where
Wow.
they'd spent 5 years or something
Yeah.
figuring out with
Great in
the
that.
Telefunken engineers, figuring out how to
Yeah,
take their
yeah, yeah.
studio on the road. That show, the sound of that was, I think that was the first time anyone heard the kind of sound that became normal in a club,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like that,
yeah,
like club music, that
yeah,
the whole sound, like the acoustics come from that because that
yeah,
was, and it was like, I had been going to shows for years, and that was quantum leap ahead
yeah, I bet.
sonically from
Wow.
anything else. And I think a lot of something most people don't know, they actually composed intermission music. So there was music before they started to play.
Yeah,
I don't think they ever released it. And they had an intermission. The whole show was absolutely crazy,
yeah,
and their stage set was like the bridge of the USS Enterprise.
yeah, I bet. It's just, yeah,
The whole thing was just insane.
yeah.
Anyway, that was a great show. And I'd have to say the third one was REM before they were famous at all for the
Wow,
Murmurs tour for their first record.
wow.
That was a show.
So that's so I can give you like a little add-on to that then with the REM reference is
Yeah.
that I famously never went to see them at their secret gig in London before when Out of Time came out when they played as Bingo Handjob.
Mm.
In the Mean Fiddler in London, and it was kind of an open secret or relatively open secret that
Yeah.
it was them going to play the secret gig. And my friend went and said, "Look, come along. You know, I'll get you a ticket. It's, you know, blah blah." And I was like, "Are you sure it's them?" No, and it was typical kind of, you know, I was teenage, like 20 or whatever at the time. And I've been to work all day, and the thought of
Yeah.
getting on an underground train and going into London was way too much. And there was probably a crap football game on or something. And it was them, and it's one of those legendary gigs that people talk about to this day. So you saw them before they were famous. I never got to see them
Yeah.
when I could have done. So
Well,
there you go.
it's like that's something that you'd want to have the time machine for.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah,
It's just,
but yeah,
there's a good question for you. If I had a chance to go onto a time machine and go back any time in terms of musical history,
yeah,
where I would go back to is London, probably around 1972 or so. I'd have to really check the dates,
yeah,
but right around the early stages of glam rock,
yeah,
because I'd want to see Bowie during that period
yeah,
somewhere. I'd go wherever, you know what I mean?
yeah. Where he's playing.
But
Yeah,
what I'd really like to see is that period Roxy Music, um, T-Rex, and then also Mott the Hoople.
yeah.
You
Love
know,
a bit of Mott.
and they were all gigging around, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You would have been able to see them.
Yeah. Oh, anywhere. You probably spend, going and see them all multiple times. But that
Yeah,
would, for me, would be what the period I'd like to see.
yeah. I mean, this is actually a question I've you know thought about, and various years friends and that talk about it, and we've had arguments and and stuff about it. I think for me, if I could go back to like that period in New York in like 75 to 77 where there was punk rock and disco at the same time,
Yeah.
and that kind of CBGB's kind of go there and
Mm-hmm.
see the likes of Blondie and Talking Heads and
Yeah.
and stuff like that was
The
coming through, like
Ramones.
Ramones,
The
television.
best band of that period, the Ramones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to kind of see the
Mm-hmm.
beginnings of punk,
Yeah.
but also disco. So with what was going on there, which led into kind of hip hop and stuff, which I'm a bit of a fan of.
Yeah.
Just to kind of experience that kind of buzz, like you say. I mean, it's the same thing, really. Glam rock
Yeah,
or whatever.
that actually that period, that hip hop period would also be really fascinating to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you also had that uptown downtown thing going on then too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know,
So yeah,
it's
that kind of movement, I think, where a new culture comes in and clears the decks. And I speak a lot about that now, about we need a new punk or whatever. And I get it. We're not going to have another youth movement culture, and certainly not in the UK. It just won't happen. It's not the it's just not the same thing. I mean, it could happen. And I used to listen to Joe Strummer talking about this when he was alive and stuff, and he would say, in the next so many years it's going to be this or whatever. And he was pretty astute with what he thought was coming around the corner. God bless him. And but I think now music is so open and diversified that you won't have just this kind of one movement of one particular scene. I guess in the UK, grime and stuff would class as that. I guess.
Well, and the other thing is, I think though it would be dependent on some venue, where there would be the ability for it to sort of congeal around.
Yeah,
in the same way that it happened in, what was it, the Summer of Love? I don't know when it was, when all of the raves were going on before they all got shut down, all of the illegal ones,
Shoom and things like that. Yeah,
because that was that again.
And absolutely,
it took on those proportions, right?
Yeah,
back in the 90s.
The Ender in Manchester and as you say, and then with the new romantic scene was I can't think what the club was called, but that started off in a small club, and various, and you're right, and that's how it is, and I don't think that's there now for if teenagers of today. I don't think that resonates.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I think that what's interesting now is to watch the dynamics between the sort of millennials and now the reaction to their reaction by the Gen Z or whatever they're calling Gen Z. That American, I hate the Z, right? It's a Z. It's a Z. Right?
Z.
But anyway,
ZZ top.
But it's interesting because they're sort of reacting against the other one, and one of the things that's happened with COVID is it's really cleared the decks. I don't know how things are in your neck of the woods, but a lot of clubs closed down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Here. It really decimated what was a very vibrant live music scene. Although I heard there's a lot of stuff coming back. I've got one friend who's really into jazz and blues, and that's come roaring. Well, I think they had to. I mean, in a lot of cases, that's how they were making their money, right?
Yeah.
Because they're all players,
Yeah,
I think it's all hard. They're all out making money, playing 4 or 5 nights a week when they can.
Yeah, so, I think over here venues, again, as you say, we probably lost a few, and some have just struggled by and things. But it's just difficult, really, to get a certain amount of people to make it worthwhile to put a club night on and stuff.
Yeah,
if you could do it for free, then great. But most people have got to sell a certain number of tickets to be able to cover the costs and give the band something, and it's hard. And money's tight, and but. It's a strange situation. We could probably talk about it all night, but this whole thing of bands that have been around for a very, very long time clogging up new bands. That's they're protecting their asset, which is their music heritage, and and they might be still relatively relevant, but they are stopping new music coming through. And
you know what? A lot of bands that I like, the kids today, I can think of 10 major artists that they would draw blanks on.
Yeah.
And that's something where I think it's really going to bite all of the record companies and all those people in the butt.
Yeah.
Because they've done a terrible job of, in any way, like, promoting artists. Well, it's like when the whole Joe Rogan thing happened and Neil Young pulled this music off Spotify. I'm sure anyone under 40 is like, who's Neil Young?
Yeah, really.
Who?
Yeah.
Who? And then Joni Mitchell. Who's that?
Yeah, I mean, even worse.
Even worse, right?
Yeah.
Because in terms of music, I mean, she is one of the greatest geniuses of the 20th century in pop music, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few that I've learned more from than her, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's but they were very stupid with this.
Yeah.
And it's overprotecting of the catalog, or it's something like YouTube where music licensing and the way it's working is terrible. And I think it's really hurt the videos. Like that's why no one's watching videos anymore. Is that it's difficult. It's difficult to do, in a sense, right?
Absolutely.
And there's no programming. I think there's no curation anymore. Which is something that you are offering.
Yeah.
In promoting and running a radio show, right?
Exactly. And again, over here, there's no real music television anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have Top of the Pops or similar shows like that. We have Later with Jules, which has been going for 20 30 years. But I watched it last night. You had Liam Gallagher on it, which is great, and he had some very, very good African singers and a few other bits, and two artists from Belgium that were quite interesting and stuff. But mostly it's not very new music based,
Yeah.
And it's and it's just one, there's very few shows I can think of that are doing it. Sky Arts does some good documentaries about stuff, but not new stuff, and and a few others like that. But there's no like the Tube when I was growing up, and it's Snub TV, and even Rapido used to do some great stuff, and and even there's lots of there's lots of opportunities, late night shows going through the night you'd record and watch the next day. There's none of that, and that's a real shame, and that's a real. But it's an opportunity for people maybe like me, or people a lot better at me, to do it, to bring it to different sites and different ways to get it out there. So
well, I think as much as anything, it's just having a greater awareness, right?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Cool.
Anyway, one more question, or actually two, because I'll have to ask you my usual question. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
There's one more question that I wanted to, if I can find it. Oh God, it may be lost now. Maybe lost in my Twitter stream.
Okay.
Anyway, the last question I'll ask you then is the question I always ask. What was the first, and you're old enough, vinyl that you bought? What was your first purchase?
So I know this very well, and I've still got the records. I could show you them. So I'm pretty sure I was able to buy. I was a bit of a spoiled kid. 3 records at the same time that were all out at the same time. I'm pretty sure of this, but if not, that I would say that they were certainly bought within a week or two of each other. So it was Reasons to Be Cheerful by Ian Dury and the Blockheads, Walking on the Moon by the Police, and that's me trying to be cool. And then to make myself not cool, it was Art Garfunkel and the fantastic Bright Eyes from Watership Down, which I was watching at the cinema at the time it came out.
Yeah.
So I tend to lead with Ian Dury to get some cool points, and follow it up with the Police, which they're kind of a bit Marmite over in the UK, but Walking on the Moon's a classic. And then Art Garfunkel and his song about rabbits dying of myxomatosis.
Yeah, he had a great voice.
Oh no, yeah, exactly. You can't.
I would love to. I would kill to have his voice.
His voice and his money, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and I just always remember going to the record shop, like we were talking before, and getting them, and I'd listen to them on the radio and stuff, and playing them on my little record player that I had, and and just playing them to death. And then, funnily enough, I didn't really buy a lot more records after that. I must have just had like 3 records plus a Top of the Pops compilation thing that they used to do, and that was it for probably a number of years as I got into, I was still playing with Star Wars toys and whatever, and then got into computers. So it probably stopped for a while, but I've still got them. So, and I'm never getting rid of them.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Anyway, Michael, stay on and we'll say our goodbyes.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's great. We'll have to stay in touch, and I will make sure I'll talk to you, and I'll make sure that all of your links so that people can get in touch with you are down in the description.
Fantastic.
So if anyone, hopefully you'll get a whole deluge of great new, great new submissions and ideas for future blogs, so that your writer's block goes away.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. It's probably something to come at something differently, maybe.
Oh, good. Well, excellent. Thanks so much for your time. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.